Rev up your engines!
Jimmy O says, Scotty, I bought a 2017 Cadillac CT6 with 30,000 miles on it. I paid 40 grand for this car. What's your opinion? Well, my opinion is they saw you coming a mile away. Cadillacs actually have horrendous resale value. You paid way too much money for that car. I had a customer that had one of those a little bit earlier, one, same basic car, and he got rid of it because it was costing him too much money because it was breaking all the time. You paid way too much for a car that has bad track record. It's relatively fast. Don't drive it as fast as you can, because if you do, you'll burn out the engine and transmission faster than normal. Now, if you drive it conservatively, you might get lucky and it might last. You way overpaid for that car. When those things are used, don't ever believe all these ridiculous books like Edmunds and stuff that give you the values of cars. Those companies that now give the estimate of what cars are worth are owned by giant corporations that sell lots of used cars. So, of course, they want the value to be as high as possible because it's the stuff that they're selling. Just like take a diamond ring to a jeweler to get it appraised, and they'll say, that ring is worth $5,000. Then say, what will you give me for that ring? And they'll hem and haw, and they don't even want to give you $1,500 for it. Unfortunately, you got taken with the price, but you got it. And if you try to sell it now, you're going to lose a fortune. So baby that car, take care of it, change the oil all the time, and pray that it lasts at least 80 or 90,000 miles before it starts breaking down, because all those Cadillacs break down as they age. They're just GM. You know, they're made on the same assembly lines as all the other GMs, and they have just as poor quality control as the other ones. The days of, it's a Cadillac, or the Cadillac of whatever, they were the top of the line. Well, that's not true, and it hasn't been true for decades. Eddie G says, 2014 Audi A5 2.0, 98,000 miles, it burns 1 quart every 1,000 miles. How much trouble am I in? Is this common? Well, it's very common. You're in a lot of trouble because you've got a 2-liter Audi. Those things are just endless money pits as they age. The problem is, yours is 6 years old. It's worth not much money. If you sell it now, you're not going to get much money for it. So if you keep adding oil and you can drive it, what the heck? Keep driving it. If you are curious, you never know. There might be some fool out there. You might just put it up for sale at a high price and see if anybody's dumb enough to pay a lot of money for it and then get rid of it. I had a customer do that once with an Audi. I wouldn't have given her $1,500 for that car. She sold it to some fool out in the country for $9,800. So you never know. But you got it. You're not going to get much for it. You keep adding the oil as it burns. What the heck? I've had customers drive those things years that way, and they just keep adding oil as it burns out. But it's a good lesson to you never buy another one, because they're money pits and they're not all that well built. They burn oil as they age. They're not this old solid German reliable run forever vehicles. They haven't been that way for a long time. The last Audi that I saw that was made like that was back in the 1960s when they started bringing them into the United States. D. Berkey 30 says, Scotty got an 07 VW Golf, 179,000 kilometers. Okay, so that's like what, I don't know, 85,000 miles. Cranks but won't fire, always starts on the second try. Okay, when they crank but they don't start on the first try, and then they do on the second. A fuel problem, it's not sending fuel. The fuel pump is probably weak. Have it pressure tested. And if it fails the test, go ahead and put another pump on it. It's typical on Volkswagens. If it's not that, sometimes it's just that the fuel injectors are getting dirty and kind of clogged up. You might either try some fuel injector cleaner in the gas tank, which helps a little, or pay a professional mechanic to use this pressure machine and pressure clean the fuel injectors, because a dirty fuel injector can do that too. But on Volkswagens, more commonly, it's the fuel pump starting to go out, so we have it pressure tested. And while you're at it, you might have a mechanic, if you get a mechanic to look at it, check the MAF sensor, the mass airflow sensor, because they're notorious for having problems. Sometimes just cleaning it. I got a video that shows you how to clean a MAF sensor with MAF spray sensor cleaner, and that could fix it too. You can try that yourself. Shma asks, hey, I'm seeing my Nissan Altima 2014. The power steering fluid is overfilled. Should I remove it or leave it? Well, if you don't remove it, it'll remove itself. Here's how it works. Power steering pumps, they can put upwards of 1,500 psi pressure, pounds per square inch. It's a lot of pressure, right? As they run, they get hot. And what does fluid do as it gets hot? It expands. That's the reason it says fill to the fill line, because if you overfill it, what'll happen is when it gets hot, it will then expand and then leak out. So if you don't empty it out, it'll eventually empty itself out. They do have vent valves on the cap so that they don't blow anything up. So if they get too high, it'll just leak out of the vent valve, and it might make a mess. So you might as well, when it's cold, overfilled, put it to the line, suck out the excess stuff. Because if you know, like I say, if it's really overfilled, it will empty itself. It'll get hot, it'll expand, and it'll leak and make kind of a mess. So it really would be a good idea for you to take it out now and put it where it should be. Mark 2018 asks, Scotty, I got a 95 Nissan Maxima, 163,000 miles. It's hard to shift from park to reverse. My foot's on the brake. I have to pull really hard, but all the other gears work fine. Okay, pray it's a simple thing, and it often is that you need a new shifter cable. You're pulling on your automatic transmission shifter there. On the bottom of that, there's a loop. The loop goes through a metal cable, and the other end of the metal cable goes to the transmission where it pulls the lever. It's probably worn out. I mean, what that thing is, it's 25 years old, so you're probably going to need a new cable assembly. They are kind of a pain in the butt to put in because they go all under and then under the car and on the transmission. Go get a new cable. Or if you're really cheap, get some WD-40, take the plastic crap off the inside where the shifter is, spray that end of the cable, and then go under the car and spray the other end of the cable. And if you're lucky, maybe it's rusty and that'll help it out. But my nose, from my experience, you're just going to have to buy a new cable and put a new cable assembly on it. Challenger asks, Scotty, can you give me advice about a Dodge Challenger? I want to buy a 2015 with a V8 engine, 5.7. Are they reliable cars? Okay, well, I'm not a big Chrysler fan by any stretch of the imagination, but those are screaming muscle cars. Therein the problem lies. A 5-year-old muscle car. Generally, people buy muscle cars to drive like absolute lunatics. So in 5 years, they generally pretty much destroy most of the engine and transmission driving it that way. You're buying that from an older guy who doesn't drive like a maniac. It could be a very good car. Most guys buy those cars are younger or they're old guys that are speed demons. My grandfather, even when he was in his 70s, he was a maniac driver. He'd regularly drive over 100 miles an hour when he was hurrying to get someplace. You would want that thing checked out with a fine-tooth comb by a real good mechanic like myself before you even thought about buying it, being that old. They could be okay, but people drag the heck out of them, and when you're buying a used car like that, be very, very leery. Now, you can get a much better price because they do have bad resale value because people do beat them and they tend to have a bad reputation as horrible used cars. So maybe you could find a good one with low miles you're taken care of, but you got to get it checked out. SUVs are very popular. Hardly anybody drives regular cars anymore. Everybody's buying SUVs in the United States. SUVs inherently, by their size, their height, they're not aerodynamic, and people want a reasonable amount of power. They don't want a wimpy one that doesn't go. They don't get such hot gas mileage. So it turns out that since people are buying all these SUVs, the gas mileage ratings of each company are actually going down because the fuel efficient ones are the small little cars, not the big SUVs. Even a mid-size SUV is pretty much of a gas hog. Realize that you can't make a heavy vehicle that's high up in the air that's going to get really good gas mileage because on the highway the wind's blowing on it, it's big, it takes up a lot of space, it's got to push a lot of air out of the way to move down the road. And as I said previously, Americans want to drive fast. They don't want some lumpy little thing that's got 40 horsepower in it. 300 up horsepower, so yeah, they're not going to get such great gas mileage when you're driving around. And even though they're trying to mandate better gas mileage, the people are betting with their dollars. They like SUVs and they don't really care that much about gas mileage yet until the price gets really high. Eventually it will. There's only so much gasoline out there. It's a limited commodity, so eventually the price is going to go up. That's just common sense. The SUVs will start to kind of fade away. My grandfather, big Cadillacs with these giant straight eights, 8-cylinder in a row. Huge things, got like 3-4 miles a gallon. People didn't care when gasoline was 10 cents a gallon, but when it started to go up, that was the end of those dinosaurs. So eventually, the SUVs will be taken over by something else as time goes on. But as it stands now, it's making all the gas mileage ratings go down for all the companies. Eli6789 says, can't find Amazon basic engine oil you spoke of. Have they stopped selling it? Well, I just looked it up on my phone and they're selling it. There it is, all over the place. I buy the stuff online now and have it shipped here so I don't have to even deal with driving down the road to buy oil. And I get a better price there anyway, so I'm real happy with that stuff. Check it again, you must have had some kind of a glitch. All I did to find out was go to my Amazon and just typed in Amazon basic oil and there they all were. They showed up, so must have made a mistake because I just found it in a microsecond. Looks like Ford is getting serious about electric cars. They're creating what they call a Mustang Inspired SUV. It's going to be an electric vehicle, and they're going to offer free access to all these 35,000 charging ports in the United States. Get free electricity for these things. They're obviously serious about it. Ford starts mass producing, they got dealerships all over the place. They're giving free access to all these ports for 2 years. Take Tesla. What do you do if it's broken? They really don't even have any dealers. Here in Houston, there's a Tesla place you can buy cars. It's in a Galleria that's a rich shopping mall. They don't have mechanics. What if they break? Ford's got a whole setup of dealerships with people that can fix stuff, give sales, they can do all kinds of stuff. Their infrastructure's already in place. They could plug in, kind of as a joke, electric cars into that infrastructure. Tesla has what? They make them, and then you need them fixed, take them back to the factory places to fix them. As soon as electric cars do start to get popular, there's going to have to be people who can fix them, people that have a giant setup for repairing them, like Ford, parts that you can buy readily, and places you can charge them up again. So, I mean, if Ford is getting serious into it, and I can see they are because they invested $500 million in this electric truck company in Michigan too. They seem to be getting serious about this electric stuff. If I was Elon Musk, I'd be kind of quaking in my boots with the Tesla. Other people coming to the marketplace. Hey, it's a competitive world now. It's no longer, oh, well, Tesla or nothing. There's going to be a whole bunch of them out there eventually, and if there's an infrastructure behind them, hey, that infrastructure goes a long way towards selling a product. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.